nice song for Canada. I used the old version, all English. I went to Westmount High School, 57 to 59, every day.
Good evening and welcome. Welcome to N.D.G Westmount Conservative Riding Election Extravaganza. Merci beaucoup pour votre présence ce soir. Nous sommes très très contentes et très très fiers d'être capables d'ouvrir notre bureau de campagne dans une manière de même. This is a lovely evening for all of us. Some of us have worked very hard for many, many years in the wilderness, it seemed, to come to this night when we have a magnificent candidate, Mr. Neil Drabkin, and every hope and every possibility of winning. Let's be optimistic. Let's be happy. Let's have a good time. And tomorrow, let's get to work.
Yes. Yes.
It's my great honor and pleasure to introduce to you one of the hardest working people for the island of Montreal.
Yes.
It is possible to turn this island blue, and if anyone knows how to do that, it's Senator Leo Housakos.
Bonsoir à tous. Good evening, everybody. I am so privileged and so pleased to be here this evening. I've been over the last couple of weeks doing a number of campaign launches and fundraisers and all kinds of events for all kinds of candidates. And we have an incredible and unique opportunity here tonight. But it's indeed a great pleasure for me to be here because Neil Drabkin is just not any other candidate. The Conservative Party has a great field of candidates. Nous avons de candidates extraordinaires sur l'île de Montréal et partout au Québec. Mais particulièrement ici dans Notre-Dame-des-Grâces at Westmount, we have a candidate who has an incredible track record of success, both in his field as an attorney and also in public life. Neil has an extended history, as so do I together. I consider Neil a personal friend, a brother in arms. Neil and I go back 35 years, and of course that just shows our age. Before I talk about the history that Neil and I have gone through and how we all got to this particular point, Neil and I also want to highlight tonight in the crowd the presence with us of Jimmy Hugh and Valérie Asselin. They're both members of National Council of the party. Valérie's also a city councilor in Dollars-des-Armeaux, and she's tireless, and her and Jimmy are everywhere at the parties where the party needs them to be. And of course, Benoit Larocque, our field organizer. And a particular warm applause for our candidate, an extraordinary candidate, Jasmine Lewis as well. And of course, Neil and I have been through 35 years of politics. And always with the Conservative Party, I like to say, Neil and I, nous sommes de vrais purulents de souche conservateurs. We have never wavered. We have stood by this party in good times and bad. And there has been recently more bad times for us in the province of Quebec and in Montreal. But Neil and I were there when we had the good times. And we won 2 successive elections. And we won in ridings like Pierre-Fond-Dollard. And we won in ridings like Ahansik. And we won, Jasmine, in ridings like Outremont. So when people say it's not possible, Neil and I were witnesses of how it is possible. And it doesn't take much. I'll tell you what it does take. It takes conviction. And there's 2 types of politicians and political parties in this business. There's consensus politicians in political parties and conviction politicians. Consensus politicians, ladies and gentlemen, are the ones that run to the front of the line at a rally and say, I'm here to lead. Or like some people will know, runs to the front of a parade and says, I'm here to lead. Conviction politicians are politicians that do what is right. They take stock of what our community needs, what our country needs. They reflect upon it, and they say, this is what are the principles that I want to fight for. I've known Neil for 35 years. He is the most principled individual I've ever seen, highest degree of integrity, and I'll tell you one thing, he was a chief of staff in 2 different governments for 3 different ministers for a reason, because he was solid. And Neil, the people of Notre-Dame-de-Grâce in Westmount on October 21st, if they are as clever and as smart as I think they are, they're going to send this individual to Ottawa to represent us. Neil Drabkin serait pas juste une voix et un bon représentant pour cette comté, mais il peut être une force politique. Et nous avons une opportunité unique d'envoyer cette fort candidat à Ottawa. I also want to go further and talk about a little bit of conviction politics, because we are all here today because we believe in those principles that the Conservative Party has fought for and will continue to fight for. We're not here because it's politically expedient. We're not here because it's easy and we think Notre-Dame-de-Grâce Westmount is going to be victorious on the 21st of October. We're here because we have a track record of doing the right thing. When Brian Mulroney, once upon a time, put forward an idea for free trade, you know, it wasn't very popular when he sort of put this on the political table in the early 80s. When he went into that election in 1988, the majority of Canadians in the Liberal Party of Canada were fighting him tooth and nail. But he did what was the right thing. He fought for his convictions, and the country has benefited for 35 years. Stephen Harper, when he had to stick-handle Canada through the 2007-2008 terrible international recession, he did it with vision, he did it with diligence, he did it with a sense of economic and fiscal responsibility, and he led the country through that period of time by not doing popular things, by doing the right things. Stephen Harper, for example, when he has stood up internationally and he has stood up for the right things, like for example in the Middle East, defending the bastion of democracy, the place that stands up for human rights, for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression. When we did that, and Mr. Harper did it, and I was so proud to be a senator in his caucus over that period of time, we did it because it was the right thing to do, not politically.
Bravo, Stephen Harper!
I will remind everyone, when Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister, the first thing he did his first month is actually consider reopening the Canadian Embassy in Iran. He decided to dialogue with probably the most brutal regime that there is on this earth, a regime that supports terrorism, a regime that supports Hamas, a regime that has caused chaos in Gaza that we see today, and the chaos that's being caused on the border, of course, of Lebanon and Israel.
Horrible.
And this irresponsible Prime Minister had the audacity to think dialogue with that country was the right thing to do. I remind Canadians it's the same Prime Minister, the same consensus, spineless, principleless Prime Minister that a year ago in the House of Commons, the Conservative Party tabled the motion recognizing or wanting to list the IRGC on the list of terrorist organizations in Canada. And just to watch the hypocrisy of this man, the Liberals got up in the House and they supported that motion that the Conservatives put forward unanimously. It's been 14 months later, they still haven't done it. But yet somehow, Assad and Syria's honorary consul general decided to get through global affairs and get sign-off from Chrystia Freeland. This is the kind of irresponsible and spineless Prime Minister that we have right now.
Shame!
The country cannot take another further.
Bravo! Very good.
When Stephen Harper decided to be fiscally responsible, ladies and gentlemen, and in 2015 he gave this country, after going through the worst and toughest recession, he gave us a balanced budget. He didn't do it by doing the popular things. He did the right things. Neil Drabkin running in this riding is not about doing the popular thing, the easy things. He could have found easier things to do over the next few weeks. Neil is talented. He could have served the party in so many ways. But he's doing the hard things. He's coming to this riding because he's ready to make history. Because we've been at this for 35 years because we know what needs to be done. And the right things need to be done. Ladies and gentlemen, we left the balanced budget in 2015. Justin shows up, and Mr. Hypocrite of all hypocrites says, I'm going to run a $10 billion budget, a $10 billion deficit. I'm going to balance it by 2019. Of course, it's 2019. $90 billion deficit later, and now the debt of the country is at over $770 billion. And I will remind people on this campaign, as Neil should do it at every door you hit on. Average family in Canada pays $6,500 a year of
Whoa,
interest.
whoa.
The average household, $6,500, just the interest
Terrible.
on that debt alone. And it is shameful, and we have a government that believes budgets balance themselves. We all know that that's not the case, and if he thinks he's going to get reelected by basically indebting the future generation of Canadians, he has another thing coming. I want to talk again about principle and competence. Look at the relationship right now between Canada and China. It's in tithers. And we have a situation of 2 Canadians that have been detained. Michael Spavor. And Michael Spavik is the second one. These are Canadian citizens. They're being tortured. They're being detained without due process.
Whoa.
And we have a Canadian government and a Prime Minister that over the last 10 months didn't find the time to name an ambassador in order to do their job. He didn't find the time to show Huawei the door. He didn't find the time to stand up, as other countries have stood up and says, we're not going to be pushed around. That shows lack of confidence and ability. This is the same Prime Minister that goes to one of the largest democracies in the world in India, and we saw the fiasco that took place over there right now. Every single place this guy has walked through has been a disaster. He goes to India, and the only thing that came out of it is he introduced Bollywood to Mr. Dress-Up. That's all that Justin Trudeau. This is a guy that blackfaces, not once, not twice, not at the age of only 18 and 19, but at the age of 30 as a teacher. What teacher blackfaces without understanding what the repercussions are? How insensitive you can be to a particular cultural group. The same Prime Minister who has spent the last 4 years pretending he's the champion of multiculturalism and diversity. Let me tell you, at the age of 30 as a teacher, if you don't understand that blackfacing is so fundamentally wrong, that means you're ignorant or you're a complete and bloody racist. I choose to believe he's ignorant. We have seen the pattern of this guy, Mr. Feminist, but yet he throws the 2 senior most cabinet ministers who happen to be women out of his cabinet because they stood up for integrity. Because they said to Mr. Prime Minister, we have known for 153 years in this country that when there's a criminal process in place, procedure in place, a criminal court case in place, no politician, let alone the Prime Minister, has the right to interfere. It's basic in our democracy. It's a separation of government for our judiciary. How many prime ministers? 24 prime ministers we've had in this country, and 153 years of history, and this is the only dodo bird that doesn't understand the fundamental principle of our system. So I can go on and on, but I think we all appreciate why we're here. We have an opportunity to send to Ottawa's Prime Minister, Andrew Scheer. I had the privilege to work with him for about a year when I served as Speaker of the Senate, and he was Speaker of the House of Commons. Let me tell you, he is smart. He knows his dossiers. He has integrity. He has principles. And I can tell you fundamentally one thing about Andrew Scheer. He doesn't have a narcissistic bone in his body. It's about Canada and only Canada. We got to get rid of the narcissist who's all about dog and pony shows and costumes and put into place a Prime Minister who's going to be working for Canadians. Now, before I introduce you, a gentleman who, like I said, I consider a brother and a friend, and a legend in the Conservative Party. Neil Drabkin's been around for 35 years. Every time there was a difficult challenge, Neil stood up to a difficult debate, we sent Neil. A difficult interview, we sent Neil. A difficult writing, we sent Neil. That's been the history. So at the end of the day, tough things are given to guys that have the most ability. And I think we all recognize that in him. This riding is very fortunate to have him. We're going to fight tooth and nail till we turn it all the way around. But I'll leave you with this thought. Somebody said to me last week, he said, you know, when Pierre Elliott Trudeau went to the notary, he left Justin Trudeau quite a legacy in his inheritance. He left him 4 points. Point number 1, he says in his inheritance, clause number 1, is I'm leaving you a tremendous trust fund with a lot of money. Clause number 2, I'm leaving you with a famous name. And clause number 3, you're going to be Prime Minister of Canada. But there was a caveat, there was clause number 4. Clause number 4 said, son, if you want to become Prime Minister for a second term, you have to earn it yourself. That's the bottom line. So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me enormous pleasure, ça m'a fait un énormément grand plaisir de vous présenter le prochain député de Notre-Dame-des-Grâces, Westmount, the next member of Parliament, my friend, Neil Drabkin.
for Senator Leo Housakos. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs, one of the best appointments that Stephen Harper made to the Senate. Not only is he a senator, but he served as Speaker of the Senator, and he brought back dignity to that Senate, and for that he needs to be commended. Bienvenue tout le monde. It's a pleasure to have you here this evening. I want to welcome everyone. What a great turnout, and let's make some history here. Premièrement, j'aimerais remercier Tania, notre présidente.
Hey, bravo!
Et Derek, tous, et tous les bénévoles qui ont travaillé très très fort pour se préparer pour cet événement. I thank all the great volunteers. I'm not going to name you because I probably will leave one out, and I certainly don't want to do that, but you know who you are, and look at that magnificent job they did in very short order to prepare this room for this beautiful evening. Thank you very much. I also want to extend a very special welcome to members of the National Council who have honored me with their presence here tonight. Our Vice President for the region of Quebec, Valérie Asselin, and member of the National Executive, Jimmy Yu. Et qui travaille très fort pour la cause conservateur. Thank you for being here this evening. Et aussi, j'aimerais remercier Benoît Larocque, notre organisateur régional, qui est ici. Il travaille jour et nuit avec nous. Et je vous remercie, Benoît, pour tous tes efforts. Merci d'être ici ce soir. And also, there are some other candidates present tonight, and I want to welcome you here as well. We have Jasmine Loris, who's my neighbor in Outremont. And we have Lise Desgreniers, who is the candidate in Laurier. Is there anyone else I've left out who's possibly in the back? Welcome. I wish you the best as well as we move to win the election on October the 21st.
Yes!
I also want to thank all the organizers, Stephen Pickford, campaign manager, and all the people that work hand in hand with him every day to make sure that we get every vote that's available in this riding. Sure, it's a difficult riding, but you know something? I like a challenge, and so I will meet this challenge with all of the gusto and all of the vigor it takes to win.
Bravo!
Hope is on the way. Hope is on the way. You know, I've been saying at the debates that I've had, and I've had many debates with Mr. Garneau, that I'm going to borrow upon my experience as a federal prosecutor to bring forward the case against Justin Trudeau.
Good!
It's a case of broken promises and bringing the administration of government into disrepute, ladies and gentlemen. And it's beyond any reasonable doubt, that is for sure, for all my colleagues who are here from the legal community. Justin Trudeau has broken the law not once, but twice. That's the first Prime Minister in the history of this country to show contempt for our laws. And if that wasn't enough, he has disgraced himself in the eyes of the world. Andrew Scheer will restore integrity to the office of the Prime Minister. The economy is one of the most important issues in this election. And 4 years ago, Justin Trudeau said, budgets balance themselves, as the senator pointed out. Well, Mr. Trudeau has found out that budgets don't balance themselves. In fact, notwithstanding the fact he promised a balanced budget by this year, guess what, folks? $20 billion of deficit this year.
Terrible!
He has broken his promise. And for that, he needs to be shown the door. He said he'd reduce taxes. But in fact, 80% of the middle class are paying higher taxes in this country. Andrew Scheer will restore our finances. He will balance the budget. And guess what? He's going to reduce our taxes as well.
Hey, bravo!
With a reckless tweet, Justin Trudeau has invited tens of thousands of people to enter this country illegally. There are immigrants and refugees waiting around the world to get to this country. They wait sometimes months, and they wait sometimes years. Yet Justin Trudeau thinks it's all right to invite people to illegally enter the country and have the RCMP carry their bags, offer up some welfare, and put them up at hotels.
And free lawyer.
By March 2020, it'll have cost us $1 billion for this fiasco.
Whoa! Whoa!
It is time to give the place to the rightful immigrants who have built this country, people like you and I in this room, and the real refugees who are waiting in camps. A conservative government will put an end to this nonsense and restore the integrity of our immigration system. Mr. Trudeau has also shown contempt for the very values that we embrace as a nation. He gave $10 million to a convicted terrorist instead of defending the government in court. When there's principle to be defended, a government defends it. It doesn't cop out and sign a check for $10 million and then tell the veterans, sorry, there's not enough money to give to you.
Yeah.
Shame. He also restored citizenship to a convicted terrorist after the Conservative government passed legislation to take it away, and he should be ashamed of himself for doing it. He has also said that Canadians who go fight for ISIS, well, you're welcome back into the Canadian family. That is not acceptable in a democracy. We have to tell those people that they're not welcome back in Canada, in fact. So there's a lot to correct as a government. We need to restore good government to Ottawa, and that's what we intend to do. Balancing the budget, reducing taxes, and having a leader who has integrity. You know, he was brought up in a family of 5. Not of privilege, as the Prime Minister has reminded us time and time again. In fact, it certainly doesn't help his cause. And it's time to put Andrew Scheer in office because he understands what it needs to help people make ends meet in this country. You know, a lot of people are struggling at the end of the month. And so we want to put more money in your pocket. That's the way a Conservative government will operate. And October the 21st, I'm very optimistic that we will be able to do that. And I want to be the Member of Parliament in this riding because I personally am sick and tired of hearing politicians saying, that's not my responsibility, call someone else. I undertake commitment that if I'm elected Member of Parliament in this riding, I will say, call me, regardless of the situation.
I like that.
So there you have it. Let us together shoulder on towards October the 21st. We need all the help we can get, so I'm hoping that people who have come out tonight will volunteer, come out and help us, go door to door with me, and let's make this a reality. Let's tell the Liberals that they can no longer take our votes for granted, that there's a new force to be reckoned on here, and that we intend to prevail on October the 21st. Andrew Scheer and I are happy to respond to the call of duty on October the 21st. We'll restore good government in Ottawa. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I want to also say that I wouldn't be here this evening if it wasn't for my mother, my 93-year-old mother, who has honored me tonight with her presence. She gave birth to me quite a while ago, and I guess she didn't know that I would end up running for Parliament a few times. But notwithstanding, she supports me. I have my sister here this evening, Roz. I want to also mention the presence of a good friend, Beryl Weichman, in the room. And I want to say ni hao to all my Chinese friends who are here this evening, and I love you all. So thank you very much for being here. We have lots of hors d'oeuvres. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Merci beaucoup.